Shalom. This week we are reading Parashat Matot. It's the penultimate Torah reading in the book of Numbers. Many years, the last two Torah readings, Matot and Masai, are connected, but not this year. So we begin reading Parashat Matot in chapter 30 of Sefer Bamidbar, book of Numbers, and verse 2. And the Torah portion begins with the subject of vows. All kinds of rules regarding vows. If a man takes a vow to HaShem or swears an oath, and it's essentially talking about making something prohibited on himself, something extra, and it's about the seriousness of keeping a vow, and all sorts of details here, complex details regarding a woman's vows and her relationship between her father and her husband, and a married woman, and all kinds of things here about the concept of a vow. And of course we know that words are very serious. What we say is very serious, has tremendous power and repercussions. We see this from many areas of Torah wisdom. We see the complex laws relating to lashon, hara, to evil speech, gossip, talebearing. We know that the effect that we can have on another person, another aspect of creation, through our words is very serious. We know about the Nazir, the Nazirite, who takes a vow upon himself and essentially changes his particular status in Hashem's world through his words. So words are incredibly powerful. And the concept in the Torah of a vow is amazing. There's a verse in Proverbs that says it's better not to vow than to vow and not pay. But there is this idea of the opportunity that making a vow provides a person for spiritual growth. And further in this Torah portion, we have the battle against Midian. We have all sorts of details relating to this war and the soldiers and the commanders. And then in chapter 32, we have this famous request of Reuven and Gad regarding the land on the other side of the Jordan and the objection of Moshe. Clearly, this is the generation, not the generation that came out of Egypt, but the generation that is going into the land. It might seem a little odd to us. Why is this whole section of Torah wisdom being introduced right now? And the circumstances under which this parasha is learned are also extremely specific. Moshe actually assembled the heads of all of the tribes of Israel and gave over these commandments of HaShem regarding the vows, the nidarim. That's also extremely significant. True, there is an idea, some of our commentaries tell us that the format in which this was given over is identical to the format in which all of the mitzvot were given over, that first they were given over to the heads, the Nesiim, the heads of the tribes, and then over to everyone. But there's something very special about, and this is what we find in the Midrash, there is something very specific about this particular section of Torah that was given over to the leaders of the people. And again, this is the generation that is about to pass into the land, not the generation that came out of the desert. So what is the significance on a level of the Torah that we've come to appreciate so much, the level of the Torah that is speaking to our hearts, that we know that this is not a minor thing, a minor detail. There's an entirely different alignment now, an entirely different configuration of this generation, making ready, taught, expectant, getting ready to go into the land. And that almost a chasm, the gap between the mentality, the consciousness of the generation that came out of Egypt, that perished in the desert, and the generation that went into the land, two totally different worlds. So now that the people are preparing to come into the land of Israel, they are instructed in the concept of the vows. And again, we know the importance of words. We know the importance of this kind of spiritual upgrade, this kind of personal, very exacting personal kind of self-help program, which is what is entailed by a person taking a step like this. But why now? And what could be one idea, level of meaning, message of why this is being given over to this generation? I think it's very noteworthy and amazing to start thinking about the fact that when you reflect on the foibles, inadequacies, blemishes, whatever you want to call them, the problems associated with the generation of the desert, and all the backsliding, and all of their particular issues that held them back from their spiritual progress, and that ultimately prevented them from going into the land. You know what? All of the issues of the generation of the desert were about words, about speech. Whether it's about the complaining, whether it's about the rabble, whether it's about the meat, the water, the complaining against Moshe, the lack of appreciation and acknowledgement of Hashem's kindness and presence in their lives, whether it was about the climax of that whole pattern of behavior, the speaking against the land of Israel. It's all about speech. And so one thing that the generation of the desert certainly learned the hard way is the power of speech and the negative effect that it can have. And now that the new generation, the generation that is about to go into the land, is taking center stage, it really behooves them to learn that lesson and understand the power of words, because they're going to be going into Eretz Israel, which is the gateway to heaven, and their connection to the cosmic configuration is going to be so much deeper, and their words that they utter there are going to be so deeply implanted and enmeshed in the whole hierarchy of Hashem's world. A word spoken, in other words, in a word, what I'm trying to say is a word spoken in the land of Israel is going to be much more powerful, and they better have learned those lessons. And you know what? I'm thinking that the concept of exhorting these people, specifically this holy generation that's about to experience what it really means to live in the land of Israel and to take their words seriously, and now giving them the opportunity to learn from all of those mistakes that were made in the realm of words. And to do all of this in the context of the Torah of vows, well, you know what? Hashem is saying, you guys took a vow at Sinai to keep my Torah. And you said, we will do, and we will obey. Remember that vow. You already owe me. And it's better not to vow than to make a vow and not pay. And when you think about that vow of keeping the Torah, of walking with the mitzvot, and you look at that on the backdrop of this incredible generation that's about to go in, and reminding them, in a way, of that vow and of the power of a vow, and of the obligatory nature of a voluntary vow, and of the power of words, and of the spiritual impact of words, and of a vow that will be taken in the land of Israel, and of the terrible word-related mistakes that were made by their forebears, then we understand that this is a powerful tool and a powerful preparation. This is not just an area of some sort of legalese. This is not just some issue of some sort of another complex area of Torah knowledge where you have to be careful, you have to be warned, words are powerful, vows no. This is a tremendous spiritual inoculation for them to receive now, to realize this is the real thing. And the power of words. Look what happened to them. Look at how they were so not careful with their words. The generation of the complaining and the lashon hara and the doubts and the lack of appreciation, and words are so holy. And now that we're coming into Eretz Israel, we have to learn from those mistakes. Make every word count. Make every vow count. And remember the vow that our nation took collectively, all generations for all time, the vow that we took at Mount Sinai, we will do and we will obey.